Where would we be without the various products delivered by the men and women in the trucking industry? Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast is a platform for professional long-haul truck drivers to share their journeys over the road, educating listeners about the trucking industry and lifestyle. Now, let's dive into the conversation on this brand new episode. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this episode. I'm your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'm joined by my husband and co-host, Jonathan Huntley.
Hey, Doc. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you with me on the podcast. Now, we're going to just share a bit with you on this first welcoming episode of the podcast. You'll get to know a little bit more about us, who we are, what we do. We'll share with you all where this whole idea for the podcast came from, why we chose this specific platform for podcasting, and who, what we hope to accomplish with the podcast, who the podcast is for, and what to expect from this show moving forward. How does that sound, Jonathan? Did I cover everything?
That sounds excellent. Can't wait to dive in.
All right, great. So I'll go first. A little bit about me. I'm a public health epidemiologist with over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health. I am the host and producer of the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast, which I started back in 2017. Now, I encourage public health professionals to think outside the box and take more creative approaches to addressing public health issues. I have a heart for trucking industry, and I have for a long time. This is from a professional as well as a personal perspective. Now, over the last decade, I've been a trucker's wife, while still serving and wearing my epidemiologist hat and just trying to serve this community industry in a way that supports the health of the professional men and women in trucking. Now, Jonathan, your turn.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan, and I am a guy who's had 3 dreams in my life. And the third dream was to drive a truck. I've been driving since 2009. I started out with a reefer truck and moved out to, the regular 53-foot dry bed. And then I got into a straight truck driving, hazardous chemicals around and landed into hauling cars. And that's where I've been for the past 6 years or so. I look forward to doing this and continue to do this because it's able to provide for my family, and it's always been a dream of mine.
Okay, so now that you mentioned 3 dreams, I have to ask, what are the other 2 dreams?
Well, the other 2 dreams were to play professional sports, which I did through football. And the other one was to be a police officer and serve my community. And I did that for 11 years.
Awesome. So let's start with let's start with where the idea for this podcast came from. What do you think, what's your response there? Let me ask that question again. Where did, this idea for the podcast come from? I'll let you start.
I believe the idea for the podcast came from me being over the road and talking with other drivers. Drivers have a lot of valuable information, and there's really no consistent platform to put it out on. And, you and I had talked and come up with the idea of doing a podcast for the truckers to give them a voice to be able to tell their stories of their adventures on the road and some of the tips that they do and have that's helped them survive the long winters or the hot summers. And maybe they can pass that knowledge off to someone who is just thinking about getting into a truck or has been in a truck for just 6 months. We've all been there, and we know how terrifying it could be for somebody to be on your own driving 80,000 pounds down the road. So we wanted to come up with a platform for the more experienced guys to express this and share the stories, and maybe even spotlight, for the family members out there who just think, oh, I just drive a truck, and, change that concept where they say, oh, wow, what they do is extremely important, and we're excited to have them. So I think that's where one of the the idea came from. Give them a platform to tell their stories.
So I love your perspective. So, and you're absolutely spot on. That's really what we talked about. But from my perspective, I've never been a truck driver. My role has been the support role, and I think that my eyes have been wide open, and I've been supporting this industry for years. But I think this gives the idea of this podcast highlighting the work that's done, the various types of truck drivers and the different industries and subcategories of what's being hauled and where they're going, and really the importance of their roles and the economy. I don't think that people truly understand, or I should say this way, not enough people truly understand what goes on in the lives of the men and women who choose this profession. So their role in the economy, as well as the sacrifices that they make to, when they choose this profession. So sacrifices involving even family and on a personal level, and just being on the road for weeks at a time, So I think that in addition to what you're saying for other drivers, I think for the people who support the drivers on the road, that this gives a different perspective. And even those who just simply are interested and curious, but just hadn't thought about it before. I think it just gives us a chance to shed light on the various types of truck drivers, the industry, share support in a different way. So, really, really excited about all of this.
Yes, me too.
Let's talk about why we chose podcasting. And, again, I'll let you kind of start with that. Like, why did we choose podcasting of all the ways we could, want to share about these, stories?
Well, as a driver over the road, we spend up to 11 hours a day driving, and, we have to focus on the road and the safety of others around us. And the best way to sort of take away that stress is to listen to something on the radio. It's not safe to watch videos as we drive down the road. So what's the best thing is a podcast, especially a podcast that has the interest of the driver, and is focused on the driver. I think it's a ability to, it's an easy way to hit the platform of what a driver needs and his wants as he's driving down the road.
Exactly. He's driving 11 hours a day. This just becomes, and with podcasting, again, I have been in podcasting professionally for 5 years, and even to say that kind of baffles my mind that it's been that long. But what I love about, about this platform is that it's easy access for the drivers. For the community that we're trying to reach, it's easy. This podcast will be available over a number of apps. So you can choose your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and so many more. There's so many different podcast apps now. It's easy access. You can listen wherever you are from your mobile device. Sometimes it's, depending on the type of truck you have, it may be part of your dashboard, but it's not just easy for the drivers here thinking about the United States. I know from personal experience, there's wide distribution. So we're talking about different states around the country, but also worldwide. For my other podcast, I have listeners who reach out to me from countries around the world because they listen to the episodes of my podcast. So this is an incredible platform. It's easy for drivers to access, but also in what we're wanting to accomplish, it's a really a wide distribution. So that's a exciting reason for having this platform, which kind of leads great in. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It's fascinating to hear from other drivers around the world, and get their stories also. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, same here. I'm really looking forward to that. So, this really leads us great, perfectly into the next point I wanted to cover, which is, what do we hope to accomplish, with this podcast? What are we trying to do? What's our goal? I'll let you go.
Well, I believe our one of the goals we want to accomplish is increase the awareness of the importance of this profession to all individuals. There's nothing in this world that you touch that has not been on a truck. food or your cars or your clothes or the furniture in your house. It's all been on a truck. And I think it's important for the average person to understand and get a glimpse of what a truck driver has to do in his everyday routine and the sacrifices he makes for the people to get their products and make their lives a lot easier. I think we'd also like to increase the support of the working environment for the driver, being away from home for days, weeks, months out of the year. It's important for this driver to have, healthy food options or fitness facilities or safe parking where they can get out and walk and do some kind of exercises at the end of their day. Because, a healthier trucker is, the backbone to the United States and around the world. And without them being healthy, it's not safe. So I think that's one of our goals too.
Yes, absolutely. And that last point, that's where I get really fired up because I put back on my epidemiologist hat as a public health, trained professional. This is something, and I've studied this population. I've been so concerned with this population of over the road truck drivers specifically for over a decade now. And when I started my research and I started this journey, I really, especially as I spent more time with you and I got access to like some time over the road and really like eye-opening experiences, I've been passionate about seeing there's two things I really want to see, hopefully in my lifetime. And that is, I would love to see healthier food options. And I mean true healthier food options for truck drivers because it's great that we have some fresh food, some fresh fruits and vegetables that are available here and there. But I'm thinking it would be great to see one of the fast food companies or companies, organizations removed from the truck stops and replaced with maybe like a mini Whole Foods type of fresh mart where the men and women who are on the road have the option to go in and do their grocery shopping for what they put on their truck and pick from Whole Foods, fresh fruits and vegetables that are accessible to them. I think that's something that is very doable, and I'm really advocating for that. And I'd love to see that happen in my lifetime. And the second part is fitness facilities. I've said this so many times because in my research, physical activity was a huge a huge thing. So if we could put more into physical activity for the drivers, then that could increase their health outcomes so much. So I would love to see a 24-hour fitness facility, like one of the big chains, I won't call a name, but take one of the 24-hour fitness facilities and put them in one of these spots in the truck stops. So these big truck stops have multiple fast food options, and we could simply start replacing some of those. We don't have to eliminate them, but we could replace one or two of those with a healthier food option, like a fresh food mini mart, or a 24-hour fitness facility. So that is where that's what I'm hoping to accomplish, highlighting these stories, bringing more awareness, really growing a community. And I'm going to be in the background with my Epi hat on, advocating for these type of changes. I'm getting a little fired up now. Am I preaching, John?
No, you're preaching to the choir because I believe that's what a lot of drivers out here are looking for. So I think it's going to serve a lot of communities, what we're going to try to do.
So now let's talk about who this podcast is for.
Oh, that's easy. It's for the drivers. It's for the over-the-road drivers, the local drivers. It's for the dump truck drivers that might be thinking about going over the road. It's for everybody who has an ear to hear. I think it's for their families and their friends and anybody who is on the fence about how to, should they get into the trucking industry or what's it in for them and stuff like that. I think if we, paint a canvas where someone listens to our podcast and they hear an episode from a trainer who's been on the road for 20 years and he tells a story and it inspires them to go out and become a driver. I think that's best for the community because, you have fresh eyes and things like that. But then you have the background experience to help them along to make them a safer driver.
Yeah, I think you covered it all. Now I just want to specify, when we interview drivers on this show, they will be over the road drivers. I really want to specifically highlight those stories. It is about the experience over the road, because that's a whole different category of sacrifice. Now, I do think, like you said, it is for everybody. The local drivers, like you said, that may be interested in this industry. All drivers, I mean, I think will be interested in hearing these stories, but the guests will all be over the road or have that over the road experience that they're sharing with us. I think it's also, I think about my industry in public health. We're often siloed. We stay in our own little compartments. So the epidemiologists tend to stick together. The researchers tend to stick together. The academics, the professors, they kind of stick together. And sometimes, the people that work in private industry versus government, they all kind of siloed off, and we don't always really get to know each other. And I think that there's an opportunity even with drivers in trucking, because you have the different types of drivers over the road. There are different things that they haul. Now, I know car haulers because that's what you do, Jonathan. And I've gotten to know a lot about car haulers, but I also I've heard about reefer trucks, and I have all the questions. And since I'm not a truck driver, so those of you that are trying to learn or curious, I'm going to ask a lot of those questions to break down their common language so that we can all understand it. But I think it's an opportunity for all of the different types of drivers to be able to hear and learn from each other and just, enjoy that overlap. And I'm looking forward to that too. I think we covered it all. What do you think?
I believe so, I think.
Anyone interested?
I think we have.
Anyone interested in what a truck driver does is going to enjoy this podcast.
Right. I agree.
So let's talk about what to expect in terms of the podcast format. And our listeners we have their interest peaked at this point. You start with the first one, and then I'll start with the bigger vision. How about that?
All right. Well, to start, we're going to start out weekly. It's going to be on every Wednesday, and we're going to gradually move into 2 times a week and then 3 times a week. So you can continue the rest there, Doc.
Yes, I have big vision. If you haven't caught on yet, I'm on a mission to shift the atmosphere here. So yes, we are starting out weekly, but we do want to increase, and we will increase as the show grows with momentum and interest. But the ultimate goal is I would love to see us releasing episodes 5 times a week, and maybe even 7 times a week, like every day. The truckers that are on the road day after day, week after week. And if this show grows the way that I envision it growing, with more and more people being interested and really pulling from this, great takeaways and really supporting the show, and it's growing, then we will have no shortage of stories to share and people to interview. And we can partner with, industry, other industries that are interested to power this movement and really grow this show to the point where we can literally have new episodes every day and never run out of people to interview, and really be able to highlight this industry in a way that it absolutely deserves and should have been done. But we can't talk about what should have, could have been done, but we're talking about what we're doing now. So I am open to really expanding this to a 7-day-a-week podcast, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, we will.
All right. So as we wrap up, thank you for your time and attention. Follow the Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast. If you're listening in one of your favorite podcast apps, just click the follow or subscribe button or favorite button, whatever that looks like. I know in Apple Podcasts, because that's primarily where I listen from, it's a follow button. So click the button to follow the podcast so that you will be notified whenever we release a new episode. If you happen to be on our website, you can subscribe to our podcast from our website, and we will notify you via email whenever the new episodes are released and whenever we have something going on within the community. And there's always going to be new things coming up. So our website is the name of the podcast, healthyconversationsinTrucking.com. And I think I've covered it all. So we're excited. We hope you will tune in and you'll follow the podcast. And I guess one more thing I will add, from our website. Again, it's healthyconversationsinTrucking.com. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a guest submission form. So if you are an over-the-road truck driver, we would love to invite you to apply, subscribe, fill out that form and meet with me so that you can be a guest on our podcast. We'd love to have you as a guest on a future episode and share your story of driving over the road. So thank you.
Yes, we would.
Yes. Thank you for your time and attention. And until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast. Learn more or be a guest on a future episode by visiting healthyconversationsinTrucking.com or simply HCITpodcast.com.